People of Reddit, what was your biggest oh shit moment? Copy/pasted some very descriptive dialogue from some erotica I had been writing into the group chat with all my in-laws instead of a link to a meme. Realizing after getting home from my first week at a new job at corporate headquarters that I left my wallet with my new company credit card, license, personal credit card, and $100 cash in the back of the seat on the airplane. I got it back, but it took a month. I had to tell my new boss that I already lost the company card, which had around a $30k limit. Good times. What happened? Were they pissed? Not really. Maybe slightly annoyed. They cancelled the card, and I got a new one. I've since moved on to a new job at a new company and I don't have a card to worry about. Promoted out of harm's way. My wife was out of state at a funeral, leaving me with our 1-year-old daughter. I walked out of the kitchen on Sunday morning to find the baby drinking a bottle of infant Tylenol. I have no idea how she got it, or how she got the child-proof cap off. A child-sized dose is only 3 milliliters. Cue me calling poison control with an E. Nurse on hold. Frantically trying to put my shoes on. My 2-year-old did this. I have no idea how got the bottle open. The nice nurse explained to my panicking self that they purposely make the child-size bottles small enough so that if a child were to somehow drink the whole thing it's not a toxic amount, and that's why they're usually portioned into 2 bottles in a package. Sure enough, the amount he drank was under the dangerous level for his weight. It was a till moment. So that's why it's always 2 bottles instead of 1 big one. Because children lol. Mine drank nearly half bottle of ibuprofen. Poison control basically said the same thing. Finding a painful lump in my ballsack. Thought I had cancer for sure, but it turned out to be a tiny third testicle that had gotten irritated somehow. I went into the doc expecting to come out less a ball. Instead I have a spare now. What the fuck? This is the correct answer. I thought it was oh shit. When I was accidentally shot in the thigh when I was downrange setting targets up. An archer here. I once shot myself in the hand. I was tilting my bow too far to the left. The arrow slipped off, and I let go of the string anyway. Luckily, I was young at the time, so I was only trusted with training arrows. Got a cool scar though. I feel your pain. I have a 90 pounds crossbow, and before I got proficient with it, I made the mistake of putting my thumb too high on the foregrip. I released the safety, and the retention spring took off the nail on my thumb and nearly cut the tip off. This pain was worse than when I broke my arm. I don't understand how and what took your nail off, but it still hurt reading that. The wire from the safety that propels the bolt. There's a notch on my crossbow where you're supposed to rest your thumb. I wasn't paying attention. Hit fire, and the next thing I know, blood, a missing nail, and me screaming every obscenity you can think of. This is actually the second time I've taken off a thumbnail. The first time was in a jogging accident. I really need to stop doing that. This is a positive oh shit moment. A few years ago, when I was at a pretty severe low with OCD, I had this epiphany that trying to solve the thoughts and feelings never accomplished anything for me. At that moment I clearly realized that if I could just let those things spin freely separate from what I choose to think about and do, then it'd be free. It's taken a lot of work, but those principles have helped me to live the life I want. I have OCD too. At some point I was thinking to myself and realized maybe I always feel negative because I'm a negative thinker and I like to think negatively. So I started working on the negative thoughts and negative reactions I had to absolutely everything. From there it got much easier to start tackling OCD. I still struggle with it, but it's gotten easier to move forward on things and am not as angry or upset all the time. When my husband was driving me to the hospital to give birth, it was such a mindfuck moment, realizing that it was the last time with just me and my husband, and the next time I would go home I would have a baby with me. For me, the oh shit moment came when we checked out of the hospital after the birth of our first. It's like you're going to let me take this tiny human home when I have no earthly idea what to do with him. I really didn't want to leave. So I just keep him as mine now. when I thought I had sprained my ankle. Then 2 days later it swelled to 3x its normal size and started turning black. I had actually broke my foot in 6 places. I sprained my ankle by stepping in a really deep hole in a field. I couldn't walk for 2 days. I didn't have insurance, so never got it checked and worked a 60 hours work week after my 2 days off because my work was short-handed and I need the money. My ankle was never the same. I could crack it on command. Fast forward 3 years. I break my leg, and when they were doing this ray I actually cracked off both the little nubs that form the socket for my foot. How I broke my leg, there was no chance it did any damage to my ankle, so I just never brought it up, and they assumed it all happened at the same time. I'd assume the doctors knew, and were being brothers, making sure you got cared for and not gotten a pre-existing condition. I'm sure someone along the way figured it out. The doctors never really asked exactly how I broke my leg, which the short answer is I fell. So unless you were there you could presume it happened all at once. I would say, unless there was signs of it already healed in this raise, I don't think they would have known until they were doing the surgery. The nubs were completely separated from my ankle, so they didn't heal back on prior to surgery. I'm glad nothing was said about it, because even after insurance my medical bill was 11k. Wait, did you break your distal tibia and fibula in one go? That takes some skill, man. Nice job. But yeah, they 100% would have noticed it was a previous break from the x-rays. The bone remodeling would have showed up. Docs being brothers. When I heard my dentist say oh shit while over tightening my dental implant. When I heard the oral surgeon say oh shit with a scalpel in my mouth. Painfully found out afterward they cut a slit in my gums on the opposite side of my mouth. Greater than sign underscore. I love the word oral surgeon. The archenemy of the anal nurse. I'm a pre-K, 3-year-old teacher. Started panicking because I only counted 7 children following me instead of the usual 8. Thought I was going to jail and everything. I was holding the 8th child in my arms. Mornings are fun. To be honest, it's the school's fault for employing a teacher who's only 3 years old. It's cheap labor and don't have to worry too much about taxes. Really, it is kind of smart, but failed execution. Who did they try to execute? Coming out of a test and realizing my calculator was in radians. That's a big F. The grade he got, F-. Was driving south on 95 through Virginia. A car was doing over 100 and I followed it, but from really far behind. A cop car was hiding in median and the trees. He came flying out and almost sideswiped me. We were face to face for a second. I thought he might pull me over afterwards, but he just went after the first guy. But it was so close to us clipping each other at high speed. Driving south on 95 through Virginia, as soon as I read this, I knew exactly what was coming next. It's like the speed limit is a minimum speed, and there's cops hiding in every bush. I moved to North Carolina, and when I visit family in Virginia it's like people take the speed limit too seriously. Like it's the word of God and they're determined to stay in the left lane going 10 under, not passing anyone. To spread the word of the great and almighty speed limit. Then I go back to NC and feel like I'm on the autobahn. It's more of an oh shit that happened to me. I was having a standard cardiology test where they were trying to get my heart to recreate an event that had previously happened. My heart wasn't cooperating and the doctor told the nurse to put something in my eye to raise my heart rate in hopes of recreating the event. I immediately felt like I had just run at full effort for 10 minutes and my heart was beating so hard and so fast, and I assume out of rhythm, that I began to black out. The nurse and the doctor started yelling something that I honestly can't remember, and then a crash cart was brought in and they gave me something else that brought my heart rate down. I have episodes of tachycardia and bradycardia as well as having a sinus arrhythmia and periodic atrial fibrillation. Edit. After googling the shit out of this, because I honestly hadn't thought about it until today and forgot what it was called. I believe it was a tilt table test and the drug the nurse put in my eye was isoproterenol, and she either gave me too much or I had a bad reaction to it or both. Edit DOS. It sounds like some of you have had fun experiences with this test. I hope you're all doing alright. Good night y'all. That's terrifying. Glad they got it under control. I legitimately thought they had accidentally killed me. I just wasn't dead yet. Depending on what your heart did, you might be right. Before I was properly diagnosed, I was walking around with a tumor blocking my spinal canal. One day I was coming home from getting lunch, and I was wearing those big platform orthopedic flip-flops you can buy. Because all the orthopedists and podiatrists I saw told me my leg pain and foot numbness were because of my flat feet. Thanks guys. Seriously, like 2 inches thick. Anyway, I stick my key in the door and all of a sudden realize that my left leg is missing. Like, data deleted. No longer there. Nothing. I remember going, what the fool was it, as I toppled over and cracked my ankle because of the flip-flops. Thankfully the feeling in my leg came back just in time for me to feel the hideous crack and almost vomit all over my doorstep from the pain and shock. That was my biggest oh shit moment of my life. Partially because I fell and hurt myself so badly. Partially because it caught me so off guard. And also, mainly because I'd never felt anything like that before. It wasn't like a leg going numb when you sit on it for too long. It was like my leg wasn't there at all and never had been. Scariest moment of my life by far. Edit. If you're a brave soul, a genuinely curious person, or a nurse/med student and want to see pics of the tumor, here's my MRI link. com/T31dxband my angiogram link. com/3vjmigd. It looks like a biggest piece of an Oreo cookie stuck in the McFlurry straw. Just thought I'd post in case anyone wanted to see what it looks like. I signed a waiver to be in a medical database too, so hopefully my situation will help med students and other patients in the future. Are you better now? Yes. Thank you for asking. It was the roughest period of my life and probably the most intense surgery I've ever recovered from. But I'm alive and I can walk/drive and stuff, so I consider that a huge win. I have not worn flip-flops since that day, though. Every time I look at a pair I get queasy, hoping I get over that eventually. Sorry for whatever other surgeries were in the running for that probably. It was a rough couple of years. I ended up being referred to an oncologist for a mass on one of my ovaries that they had to just take out. The mass was the size of a golf ball, which is significantly bigger than the average ovary, so there was no saving it. Lol. It was the point where the OB/GYN referred me to the OB/GYN oncologist that I was sitting on the exam table like, is my body just riddled with random tumors? Is this going to be the rest of my life now? So I'm hoping 2020 is going to be my year. My year of no surgeries. Please God. Edit. Both tumors were benign. Though, that's the silver lining. When I texted my wife complaining about what a nasty bitch my mother was acting like, only to realize I had texted it to my mother. That sensation of breaking out into a cold sweat because you know what happened and yet it's 2 seconds too late to take it back. I liked, and still do, my stepmom, but when I was in my early teens, I would complain about her to fit in with my older brothers. I once slagged off her fantastic cooking, only to realize she was within earshot. Cold sweat. You better have given her the biggest hug after that. When the doctor at the urgent care told my mom to quote go straight to the emergency room. You don't need to pay for this visit. The same thing happened to me. I took my son to urgent care because of a lump under his arm. The drive. Took one look. Said I'm calling the ER right now. Go straight there. You don't owe us anything. Turns out he had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He's fine now. Good Lord Almighty, glad to hear that. I only had to have my appendix out. When my blood work came back, and my GP stared at it for a long while, then said he would refer me to a hematologist, but then he threw his arm around my shoulder and said, "I'll pray for you." He had never said or done anything remotely like that. Felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Edit. Sorry, no, I'm not dead. I have autoimmune diseases and they mistook it for some kind of blood cancer because everything about my blood was just wrong. Doctor scared my ass off very badly. I guess it's kind of ironic in a comment about my doctor being unnecessarily ominous that I neglected to mention that I'm okay. I should now just chronically ill on lots of medicine. WH. What happened? He sent me with paperwork to test for blood cancer. but he didn't tell me what I was being tested for or why. I have no blood cancer, but I did find out I have autoimmune diseases. I don't know why he acted so ominous at all. The time I was taking a shower and the shower control broke off as I was adjusting the temperature, not just the handle, but the mechanism it controlled. Hot water came gushing out of the wall, and there was no shut-off valve for it. The only way to stop the water was to turn off the main valve for the whole house. OMG, I had this same damn thing happen to me at a house I was dog sitting at, but I actually had the handle hit me. Realizing I left food on table when I went traveling. 5 weeks later we come back, and it's filled with worms. Sounds like extra protein to me. Oh no. I had a thyroid nodule biopsy at the end of 2017. They said if the result was benign, they would email me. 6 days later, they called me. Oh shit. Cancer free for 2 years on Saturday though. Yeah, I've learned with doctors, if they call, it's serious. If they call as soon as possible after the test is done, it's very, very serious. I was sent home from the ER one time because I was just dehydrated. As soon as I closed my front door they called me saying I had to come back. It wasn't too serious though. I had air trapped in the tissue of my throat that made me feel like I was having an allergic reaction. Couldn't breathe. Lightheaded. Voice sounded funny. Resolved in 2 days with antibiotics. Definitely unsettling when they tell you to go back ASAP with no reason. I've had doctors call 2 times as soon as I got home. A gallbladder full of gallstone surgery 2 days later, C. diff. Infection that was about a day from killing me. After I had gone to the ER almost daily for a month trying to get someone to listen. This sounds exactly like what happened to my wife. Both the gallstones and the infection. She also had been trying to get someone to listen. Doctors were treating her like she was some crazy woman desperate for attention, and it was all in her head. You have testicular cancer. We are removing your left testicle on Monday. Fuck cancer, at least they caught it in time. Not dead yet, baby. 97% survival rate overall. Fuck testicles. Fuck testicles. I mean, that is their only purpose. Well, I wouldn't want to say fucking testicles is the right way to do the deed, but to everyone their own, I guess. Biking down a short but steep hill doing 30 miles per hour to keep up with traffic. Driver about 3 cars ahead of me stops abruptly at a crosswalk. I lay onto my brakes, but feel my wheels start to slip. Instantly had that sense of time slowing down to the point where I could make reasoned and considered decisions. Looking ahead, I could run into the car ahead of me, attempt to shoot the gap between the cars and the curb, but also risk hitting the pedestrian in the crosswalk. Or I could go down on the grassy verge, decide that the last option looks best for everyone, but then realize that there's a tree in my way. Managed to roll into the fall so that my shoulder and rib cage took the impact, didn't even hit my head. Ended up a little battered, especially since I jammed my pinky in the ground. But after sitting around to recover my breath, I managed to ride home not too much the worse for wear. No broken bones and I only had to take 1 day off of work. Though it was a while before my finger wasn't sore and stiff. I'm impressed how well you examined the situation in such a short time and managed to walk away without any broken bones. If it was me, I would rammed into the car ahead of me. Adrenaline, or at least I've always assumed it's adrenaline that does it, doesn't actually slow time down, but ramps up the processing speed of your brain in a situation where it looks like you are moments away from certain death. You can analyze so many potential solutions to your predicament in that moment, because if you don't, well, you're dead. Better alive and suddenly exhausted from spending that much energy that fast. I've experienced this too. It's a very extraordinary feeling. I didn't experience it for long though. I tripped and fell down a barely 2-meter high plank in Gym Plus. The fall probably took less than a second, but I managed to get to worry that I would hit my head. I felt how my back hit the floor first, and I told myself that I was lucky that I didn't hit my head. What felt like a while later my head hit the floor, and before I was back to reality I sort of cursed my bad luck. My eyes were closed the whole time. Would have been interesting to see how I would have perceived the world around me. When was driving home at night, Ed had Indian food for lunch and I started to feel a sudden onset of the rumbles really bad. So I pulled over at a McDonald's, tried to get in to use the toilet, and the door was locked. Even though the sign on the door said the dining area was open until 10 and it was 9:55. There was no way to get to another toilet in time. r/shit a literal shit moment. Holding my old ass cat and I slipped in a pee puddle. On the stairs. That'll teach you to pee on the floor. I was running laps around the football, soccer, field, and looked down for a second. The blur of my moving feet looked kinda cool, and so I stayed looking down watching it for a few bit. In retrospect, not a good idea. As I moved my head to look up, I caught a split-second glimpse of the goalpost before running into it face first. Went to the hospital and had a black eye for a few months TL. Doctor, ran into a goalpost. Question, was there a satisfying dunk noise as your head made contact with the goalpost? Well, it wasn't very satisfying to me, but yes. Hearing I'm pregnant. What to expect when you're not expecting. What to expect when you're not expecting to be expecting. I was in high school and my BF was driving me to work in a snowstorm. It was really slippery out and we were in a tiny car. Looked up, saw a full-size truck with a trailer behind coming towards us. It made a left turn in front of us. No way we could stop in time. I said oh shit. Fainted. Spider-wet the windshield with my head. Woke up in the ambulance once and then again in the hospital. Headache for almost a month. That's horrible. Glad you made it out alive. Seeing a ginormous 120V sine wave on the oscilloscope when it was supposed to be 5 volts. Yes, the probe blew up. That's some good design for the scope then. I've seen scopes blow up from accidentally putting mains directly into it. I was riding my bike and I rode into someone else. I fell off my bike and started apologizing to the other guy who was just looking at me in horror. I then looked down at my arm and saw the bone fully sticking out. For some reason I didn't feel until saw it. That's the thing about adrenaline. Sometimes you'll have it kicking and you won't feel anything until you're staring at a bone sticking out of you. Which, according to my research, isn't supposed to happen. Hey, thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.